everyone, welcome to Programmer Guru Tute's video channel. So this is a tutorial series on Spring Batch, and specifically in this tutorial video I'm going to discussing about introduction to Spring Batch, where I'll be discussing about what is Spring Batch, what are the advantages of using Spring Batch over traditional Java code, and also I will be discussing about a couple of jargons involved in Spring Batch. So let's get started. Before learning about Spring Batch, we need to know what is a bad job in traditional programming world. So here is a definition given by Indiana University. What is a bad job is, it is a simple computer program, or it could be a set of programs processed in batch mode. That means you are putting, for example, you are putting a sequence of commands to be executed in a file called batch file or command file, or even it could be a shell script, and you are just asking your operating system to execute each and every line of code in a sequence manner. So this is actually called a bad job. But this definition may not be applicable for learning Spring Batch, so I came up with my own version. So here is my version. A bad job is nothing but it just reads data from a data source, processes it, and writes the processed data in a specified format. For example, if I want to load XML data into a database, I have to write a simple batch program based on traditional core Java, or based on some frameworks like Spring Batch. So what exactly bad job is, I'm just reiterating once again. A bad job just reads data from a data source. That data source could be a database, or it could be a file system, or it could be data you are just getting over the network. And once you get the data, you have to process it and you have to produce it to the required format. So that format could be CSV file, or it could be a text file, or if you want to just load it to the database, you can do that. So this is all about a bad job in computer programming world. So what exactly bad job in real world? So I just came up with a couple of examples here. So these examples I went through in my career so far. So when it comes to healthcare, we know what exactly healthcare deals with, right? And when you want to implement something over healthcare, you can create some applications like claim processing application, ID card processing application, or even you can create an enrollment system like that. But where exactly this bad job will fit in? So that's what I'm going to discuss here. Claim processing application. For example, you are working on a project where you have to process the claims your company is receiving, and your project is all about just processing the claim, and it has to say whether the claim is processed or rejected, right? If you want to do that with a traditional core Java program, so that will be time consuming. So you won't have a proper logging, you won't have a proper infrastructure over there to connect with different systems. So in that case, you can go with a framework like Spring Batch, where you can use the infrastructure of Spring Batch to develop a bad job which will process hundreds of thousands of claims every day you are receiving. And you can just schedule the bad job as a daily job which will run every day, and it will produce the expected result, that is going to be a claim processing result or status that could be updated as processed or rejected in the backend. And coming to next example, which is ID card processing. For example, as soon as member enrolls in the system over a web application, member has to get the ID card within 4 or 5 days. So what we have to do is, we have to develop a batch application which will run periodically, say for example every 3 hours, and it has to pick all the members registered very recently, and it has to create, or it has to generate ID cards for them, and it has to mail it to the enrolled members, right? So if you want to run a program for every 3 hours, you have to first schedule it. To do all those things, to bring in all those infrastructure, you need to go with a framework like Spring Batch. So this is just an example I came up with for healthcare. We have many applications created in Spring Batch, and they are running successfully. So coming to banking or finance, for example, you have to send a report like a transaction report for a day to a manager of a specific branch. You need to run a job every day, and that job has to pick the transactions happened for the day, right? If you want to do this specific task, you have to create a simple batch job using Spring Batch or any other frameworks, and you can just schedule it to run every day. That's it, right? And coming to next example, which is Facebook. So we know for our friend's birthday, we are getting a notification from Facebook to wish our friends, right? So Facebook should be having a cron job, or it could be even having a batch job developed with Spring Batch or some other technology, and that batch job is just going to pick your friend's details, like whoever is having birthday. It will just pick those details, and it will just notify you saying that please wish them. So this is a perfect example for a real-time scenario, right? So let's move on to next slide. So far we discussed about examples, and let's move on to Spring Batch architecture, like how a Spring Batch is built and what are the components involved in that. We need to learn that before we start learning about Spring Batch coding, right? So let us start with the architecture. So here you can see 3 blocks, right? Application, batch code, batch infrastructure. So application is nothing but your piece of code. You developed it with the help of a Java language. You are just putting all your business logic, everything within that. So that comes under application. And what exactly is batch core? So batch core is nothing but Spring Batch provided implementations. For example, job launcher, job, and step. So these implementations you can find under Spring Batch framework, and this is actually residing inside batch core. And the next one is batch infrastructure. So batch infrastructure is actually going to take care of your application as well as Spring Batch core. So what exactly batch infrastructure does is it takes care of restarting the job in case of failure, and also it has the functionalities like readers and writers, which I will be discussing more in coming slides. Okay, so once again let us quickly go through what is application, batch core, and batch infrastructure. So application is nothing but your Java code where you put all your business logic, everything. And coming to batch core is actually Spring Batch provided implementations for handling your batch job execution. And Spring also provides its own infrastructure, which is called batch infrastructure, which has common implementations of readers and writers, and also it has services like read write template. So where you can let know your Spring Batch that whether you want to restart the job on failure or you just want to leave it just like that, right? So all those implementations you can do that with the help of batch infrastructure. And in the coming slides I'll be discussing more about what is job, what is step, and what is job launcher, right? And coming to advantages, so before we learn about all those jargons, I just want to discuss about what are the advantages of using Spring Batch. Spring Batch provides its own infrastructure where it takes care of logging, configuration, retry logic. Also it takes care of running the job, and so it just reduces boilerplate code. So it takes care of everything from A to Z. So when you want to create a batch job, you just need to concentrate on putting your logic, and remaining everything like infrastructure and other stuffs will be taken care by Spring Batch. Okay. And the next advantage of using Spring Batch is chunk oriented processing. So as you know what a chunk is. Chunk is like a group of data, is called as chunk in programming world. Batch job is all about processing data, right? If you want to process data, you need to process it in a chunk. So like a group of data you need to process. So if you just process it one by one, it will take more time. So instead you can do it as a chunk. So that's what we are doing it in Spring Batch, and Spring Batch provides good infrastructure for chunk oriented processing, right? And the next advantage of using Spring Batch is error handling. In case if your job fails, or if your job throws exception, you can just skip that and you can continue running your batch job. You can do that settings or configuration in Spring Batch. Also, in case if your batch job fails for some reason, you can even ask your Spring Batch to retry running it. For example, if you set the retry limit as 3, Spring Batch will try to run for 3 times, right? So we will be seeing all those examples in our coming videos, right? And the last advantage of using Spring Batch is logging. So Spring Batch provides a proper logging mechanism. You can trace your job execution in the database persisted with Spring configuration. Okay. So this is all about advantages. Coming to jargons involved in Spring Batch. So this slide is going to be anatomy of Spring Batch, like what exactly inside Spring Batch is. Okay. So we have a job repository here, and job repository is connected to job launcher, and also job, and also step, right? And step is connected to item reader, item processor, and item writer. And what exactly this job launcher will do is it will launch the job. Launch is nothing but it will trigger or execute the job by reading the job parameters and other information from job repository. So job repository is actually persisted to the database like SQL Server or MySQL, or that could be even HSQL, right? So your job information will be persisted in a database, and every time before launching the job, job launcher will fetch all job related parameters from job repository, and it will trigger the job. So when job is triggered, job will run as a step. Okay, you can configure any number of steps in a job. You can, at least your job should have one step in order to run it as a batch job. You can have any number of steps in your batch job. So that's what you are seeing here, one-to-many relationship, right? And coming to step, that step could be a simple step which will just send an email, or it could be a step which will take care of processing the data in chunk oriented processing, right? For processing the data, we have implementation in Spring Batch, and it takes care of reading the data, processing it, and writing it. So we have interfaces in Spring Batch to take care of these operations. So item reader will take care of reading the data, item processor will take care of processing the data, and item writer will take care of writing the data to the respective data source, right? So this is actually the anatomy of Spring Batch. So I will just go through the definition given in Spring documentation. Okay, so what is job? As I already told you, so job is nothing but your batch job which you created to perform a specific task, and each batch job has to be configured with one or more steps. As I already told you, it can have even a single step, or it can even have multiple steps, and each step will take care of different tasks. And what is step? Step is nothing but a piece of code which is going to take care of independent logical task. For example, if you just want to read data from text file, you can write a step for that. Even if you want to send an email after processing the data, you can create another step. So step is basically going to perform a specific task, and each step has to be connected logically, and it has to be executed in a sequence manner. As I already told you what is batch job is. Batch job is nothing but putting a line of commands in a batch file, right? So similar to that, we have to configure our steps in a sequence manner, and these steps have to be configured inside a job. And coming to item reader, this item reader will take care of reading the input data, and it will share each item or data it read from the data source to respective processor or writer. In case if you handle item processor, data from item reader will be sent to item processor. Okay, but item processor is optional. You can even leave it empty. In that case, if item processor is empty, item reader will send the data to the item writer. Okay, and what exactly item processor is? It is going to handle some business logic in your program, in your batch job. For example, if you want to process the data received from the text file based on some conditions, say that the data has to be processed only when the person's age is greater than 30, you can put such logic inside item processor. Okay, and once item processor processes the incoming data, it will send the transformed data to item writer, and item writer will just put the data in the respective format. If you just configure your item writer to create a CSV file, each item retrieved from processor will be put into the CSV file. At the end, a CSV file will be created, and it will be the output of your batch job. Okay, and the last thing is, each step has to be configured with individual item reader, item processor, and item writer, right? If you want to handle two different data sources, you need to create two steps, and each step has to be individually configured to item reader, item processor, and item writer. I know this will be a bit confusing here, but when you take a look at the code, it will be more convincing. Okay, so for now, just understand what is job, step, item reader, item processor, and item writer, because these are the jargons which we will be using while creating String Batch application, right? We have more components in String Batch. They are job launcher and job repository. Job launcher is actually going to launch your job, so it is like a triggering point which will trigger your job execution. And job repository is something like a container which stores your job information. It will have the information like what is the last run of the job, what is the last success run, what is the last failure run, and what are the job parameters, and all those information you can find in job repository. And job repository provides CRUD operations to do all this. Okay, for example, you have 3 steps. For example, you have step 1, following that step 2, and following that step 3. Okay, assume step 1 is reading the data, okay, and writing it to DB. And step 2 is just going to send the email. And step 3, it is just going to send a report, okay, extracted from the DB. And if you want to configure steps like this, you have to configure it inside the job. Okay, so that is different part of learning. Okay, we don't have to concentrate on that. But what exactly it will do when it comes to job repository is, when step 1 is running, it will go and update job repository saying that step 1 is currently being run. Okay, Once step 1 is completed, the job repository will be updated as step 1 is success. And when step 2 is running, it will say step 2 is running. So once step 2 completes running, it will update it to success. And coming to last step, which is step 3, which will be updated as running. Once this step 3 completes running, the status will be updated to either success or failure, depends upon the execution of step. So assume it is successfully run, so the step 3 status is updated as success. So this piece of information, like what exactly happening in your steps, you can find it under job repository. Okay, you know what is step in batch job? Step is nothing but a piece of code which is going to perform an individual task. Okay, and when job is running, each step information will be updated to job repository. Not only step, it will also update other information which we are going to see in coming slides. So we have more jargons to discuss here, which is job instance, job execution, job parameters. So what is job instance? Say you have a batch job called end of day batch job, right? So this is your batch job name, and if you want to run this batch job for today, job instance will be created by Spring Batch, and that job instance will be executed. Okay, and what the job instance will do is it will take parameters like job parameters from user, and it will take it as the input to job. Okay, and what job instance will do is it will invoke job execution to execute this particular job instance. Okay, and for example, if this job execution is failed, what will happen is a new job execution will be created. Okay, and it will be executed. Even if it fails, it will go and check the retry limit. If the retry limit is 3, it will go and create one more instance for job execution, and assume if the job execution is success, it will update the job status as success in job repository. Okay, so what exactly job instance is? It just refers to the logical run of the job. So for example, if this job is scheduled as a daily job, so today's instance is called as job instance, and tomorrow's instance will be created newly, and from that instance job execution instance will be created. Okay, and job execution refers to a technical execution of job instance. In case if this job execution has failed, it will create one more job execution instance. Okay, but only one job instance will be created for a single run. Got it? And how to differentiate between different job instance is by looking at the job parameters. So the job parameter could be a date. Okay, so you have to see what exactly the job instance for today is. So for that you need to go and check what is the job parameter for today is, right? So you can find all this information posted in job repository. Okay, so for now it might be a bit confusing for you, but when you take a look at actual running program, it will be more comfortable and convincing for you. Okay, so for now just understand the theoretical part of Spring Batch, and remaining steps we'll discuss in coming videos. Okay, so this is again like quick iterating of what exactly Spring job is. Okay, a Spring Batch is called as job, right? The Spring job or Spring Batch can have any number of steps, and each step will take care of a specific individual task. For example, this step will take care of reading data and writing it to the DB, right? And what this step will do is it will create a report out of the data present in DB. And this step could email the report generated to the respective parties, right? So this is all about a quick representation of job, right? And item reader and item writer comes into reading and writing part. Okay, so it comes to this step where exactly it reads and writes the data to the DB, right? And what is job instance is, for example, if I want to run the job today, okay, it will create a job instance for today by taking parameter as September 30, okay, which could be date. You can pass any data as the job parameter, but here I just want to pass this date as, like, current date as job parameter to job instance. So this job instance will invoke job execution. If the job execution is successful, well and good, no issues. If this job execution fails, a new instance of job execution will be created. Even if it fails, it will create one more job execution, and if it is successful, it will update the job repository as information as this job is successfully run for today. Okay, so this is just a quick information about Spring Batch, and in the coming videos I will be discussing about how to prepare yourself for Spring Batch in terms of environment setup, like what softwares you need, and also I will come up with more examples. Okay, all my examples will be simple, and also it will have more conceptual information, right? So thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, and also share this video to your friends who are looking for a tutorial on Spring Batch.